On a cold December night in 2011, 13-year-old Erica Parsons seemed to disappear without a trace. Her parents told everyone she had gone to live with her biological grandmother, but something about their story didn't sit right. As investigators started asking questions, strange details began to surface. Mysteries involving bruises, missing time, and a plastic tote that couldn't be ignored. What really happened to Erica? And why did it take years for the truth to finally come out? This is the heartbreaking story of a girl who was silenced, but whose story refused to stay buried. Erica Lynn Parsons entered the world on February 28, 1998, born to Carolyn Parsons. At just 4 pounds, 7 ounces, Erica was a tiny but spirited baby. However, Carolyn faced a heartbreaking decision just days after Erica's birth. Financially unable to provide for her, Carolyn chose adoption, hoping to secure a brighter future for her daughter. Erica's biological father was absent, but Carolyn's former brother-in-law and sister-in-law, Sandy and Casey Parsons, stepped forward to adopt Erica. Carolyn had grown up in foster care and dreamed of something better for Erica. At just 4 weeks old, Erica joined the Parsons household, becoming part of their growing family. Officially, the adoption was finalized in 2000, though Sandy later claimed it happened in July rather than March. Casey Parsons fondly recounted those early days, saying, "We had her from 4 weeks old. By the time the adoption was finalized, she was calling us Mama and Daddy. We were the only parents she knew." Sandy and Casey had their own tumultuous history. They married sometime in the early 1990s and welcomed 3 biological children: Sandy Jr. in 1992, James in 1993, and Brooke in 1995. However, reports of domestic violence plagued their marriage. Sandy faced convictions for assaulting Casey in both 1994 and 1997, with court-ordered probation and community service. Despite this, they remained together, and their household grew with the addition of Erica. In 2001, Casey ventured into surrogacy, advertising herself online. She connected with Amy Miller, who hired her to carry a child. The arrangement began promisingly, but it quickly unraveled. After 6 weeks of pregnancy, Casey informed Amy of a miscarriage, only to cut off communication entirely. Later, Amy discovered evidence suggesting Casey had planned to keep the baby and had solicited money from other prospective adoptive parents. Legal threats and an FBI investigation forced Casey to relinquish the child after birth, raising serious questions about her motivations as a surrogate. Meanwhile, concerns about Erica's safety emerged. In 2002, social services began investigating allegations of abuse in the Parsons home, dating back to when Erica was just 2 years old. These suspicions added to the growing unease surrounding the family's treatment of their adopted daughter. The Department of Social Services launched an investigation into claims that Erica Parsons had been physically abused. A report alleged that Casey Parsons often carried a belt and used it to discipline Erica, leaving bruises. The report described marks on Erica's buttocks, the back of her leg, and the side of her face. It was also alleged that Erica refused to eat at times and that Casey had told her she didn't love her. When the Department of Social Services interviewed Casey, she denied the accusations of abuse. The investigator observed that Erica didn't appear to fear her parents and even sat on their laps without hesitation. No visible injuries, such as cuts or bruises, were found during the investigation. However, Erica was noted to be very small for her age, weighing just 41 pounds at 4 years old. To address the situation, a safety plan was implemented. Casey and Sandy Parsons agreed to use non-physical discipline methods, such as timeouts and groundings, and promised to provide a safe and stable home. On March 1, 2003, Casey traveled to Mexico for a medical procedure to reverse her tubal ligation. Later that year, in August, Erica enrolled at Boston Elementary School. Staff members remembered her as a shy but sweet child who smiled often and loved stickers. One teacher recalled how Erica would brush her bangs out of her eyes when she felt anxious and beam with pride when praised. In January 2004, Casey announced in an online post that she was pregnant, with a due date in September of that year. Around this time, another Department of Social Services complaint was filed, leading authorities to visit the Parsons home. This complaint claimed that Erica was frail. Casey no longer wanted her, and the parents had tried to give her away. Casey and Sandy denied using physical punishment, explaining that they raised their voices rather than hitting their children. They also stated that Erica had gastrointestinal issues that caused her to vomit food she didn't like, and denied threatening to withhold food or trying to give her away. When the Department of Social Services interviewed Erica alone, she described her discipline as timeouts or losing privileges. She said she might get spanked if she did something very bad. Erica appeared happy and well bonded with her adoptive parents, but investigators noted her small stature and frailty. The Department of Social Services required the Parsons to seek medical care if Erica's eating issues persisted or her development lagged. Despite this, neglect was substantiated, as Erica wasn't receiving the necessary medical attention. She was placed with an aunt who observed that Erica wore clothing meant for toddlers and was severely underweight. Living with her aunt, Erica began eating, playing, and gaining weight. She also confided that Casey and Sandy had physically disciplined her. However, the aunt didn't pursue legal custody, and after 8 months, Casey and Sandy regained custody of Erica. In 2004, Erica transferred to another elementary school, and on August 20th, Casey gave birth to a daughter. By 2005, Casey was pregnant again but reported an early miscarriage. She then started a business called Carolina Tail Waggers, which some sources described as a Chihuahua puppy mill, though details remain sparse. Later that year, Erica began homeschooling through the Parsons Christian Homeschool, a program Casey created at their home. Casey was listed as the chief administrator, and the state did not conduct background checks or require detailed progress reports from the school. Records show it enrolled 3 female students and 1 male, but there were no submissions of annual achievement test scores. From 2005 onward, information about Erica became scarce. Then, on July 30, 2013, Erica's then 19-year-old brother, Jamie Parsons, had a fight with his parents, whereupon he reported Erica missing. He described to officers that his parents had told him back in December 2011 that Erica had gone to visit her biological grandmother. Jamie explained that he had always felt the story seemed odd, especially since his father, Sandy, appeared unusually distressed when discussing Erica's absence. Jamie recounted his father looking pale and anxious, whiter than a piece of paper. Jamie's thoughts turned to the last time he saw Erica. She was 13 years old and had seemed unwell. Jamie remembered her looking gray and exhausted. She reportedly told Casey, "I can't breathe," but Casey dismissed her, telling her to get back in the corner. The next morning, Jamie woke up and Erica was gone. When he asked his parents about her, they claimed they had taken Erica to Asheville, North Carolina, to live with her biological grandmother, whom they said had reached out on Facebook to reconnect with her granddaughter. Jamie explained to authorities that this was the last he had heard about Erica. An investigation into Erica's disappearance was launched immediately. Detectives searched the Parsons home thoroughly, pulling up floorboards, probing the yard for signs of clandestine graves, and exploring every lead. Despite their efforts, Erica's whereabouts remained a mystery. Tips and reports flooded in, including alleged sightings of Erica along the roadside and calls from psychics, but none led to concrete answers. The FBI joined the search, offering rewards and generating national attention. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children created an age progression photo of Erica, transforming an image of her at age 9 into what she might look like at 15. These photos were widely circulated on billboards in hopes of gathering new leads. Authorities were determined not to fail Erica. Casey and Sandy claimed to investigators that they last saw Erica in December 2011 at a McDonald's in Mooresville, North Carolina. They stated they had taken Erica to meet her biological grandmother, who they alleged had contacted them on Facebook. According to the Parsons, they had traveled with one of their daughters to hand Erica over, but when investigators spoke with the girl, she denied being part of the trip. Investigators also found that Casey and Sandy could not provide any contact information for Erica's grandmother, not even the Facebook profile they claimed she had used to reach out. The lead investigator worked tirelessly to locate Erica's grandmother. He searched for individuals with her name in Asheville, but found no evidence of anyone connected to Erica. By August 2013, detectives publicly announced their belief that the story about Erica's grandmother was fabricated. They revealed that Sandy and Casey were not cooperating with the investigation. Around the same time, Erica's biological mother, Carolyn Parsons, flew from New Orleans to North Carolina to assist investigators. On the same day, Casey and Sandy appeared on the Dr. Phil show, claiming they believed Erica was not missing but was simply a rebellious teenager who no longer wanted to communicate with them. On the show, Casey stated that Erica's grandmother had told her that Erica refused to return home after staying with her for 2 months. Casey claimed she had tried to contact Erica's grandmother, but the phone number was no longer active. She interpreted this as Erica blocking their number. Despite their appearance on national television, Casey and Sandy maintained that they had been exemplary parents and insisted that Erica was safe. They denied any wrongdoing and blamed Erica's supposed disappearance on teenage rebellion. However, investigators remained skeptical as their story had glaring inconsistencies. In September 2013, Casey allowed media into her home, showing them Erica's former bedroom. By this point, the public and authorities were increasingly doubtful of Casey and Sandy's narrative. The search for Erica continued, with growing concerns about what may have happened to her after her last confirmed sighting in 2011. Detectives working on Erica Parsons' case had long suspected that Casey and Sandy Parsons were hiding critical information. Their instincts told them that separating the couple might lead to the truth, as Casey appeared to exert significant control over Sandy. However, keeping the two apart seemed nearly impossible until investigators uncovered a crucial mistake. The Parsons had continued collecting adoption assistance and food stamp benefits for Erica, even though she had not been in their custody for 2 years. These federal benefits, intended for Erica's care, became the key to involving the FBI. By 2014, Sandy and Casey Parsons were arrested on 76 counts of federal fraud and identity theft. The jury rejected Sandy's defense that Casey had masterminded the scheme and that he was unaware of the household finances. In March 2015, the couple received a combined sentence of 18 years in federal prison for their crimes. Despite the convictions, Erica remained missing. But in 2016, a major breakthrough came from Sandy Parsons himself. After more than 3 years of maintaining a web of lies, Sandy finally confessed. He admitted that Erica had died 5 years earlier, at the age of 13. Investigators escorted Sandy to rural Chesterfield, South Carolina, an area tied to Casey's past. There, within minutes, Sandy pointed to the shallow grave where he and Casey had buried Erica. The detectives described Sandy's demeanor during the confession as somber and tearful. Sandy recounted the events leading up to Erica's death. In December 2011, he woke to Casey telling him that Erica had died. Casey had placed Erica's body in a plastic tote, where it remained for 2 days as the couple decided what to do. During that time, the family went about their lives, even attending a Christmas party. The couple eventually transported Erica's remains to the Chesterfield County site. Before burying her, they poured bleach over her body in an attempt to conceal evidence. To avoid detection, they removed the batteries from their phones during their trips to the burial location, once to dig the grave and a second time to dispose of Erica's remains. After nearly 5 years of concealment, Erica's body was finally recovered. Detective Moose personally oversaw the recovery of Erica's remains. He ensured her dignity was respected in death, something she had tragically been denied in life. Erica's remains were placed in a body bag, left unzipped so she would no longer be left in the dark. Detective Moose even added a stuffed animal to the bag as Erica's remains were transported back to Rowan County. Erica's discovery brought closure to a case that had haunted the community, and she was finally laid to rest with the love and care she deserved. As one investigator put it, Erica got more love from the community than she ever did from her adoptive family. Investigators suspected from the start that Casey Parsons orchestrated much of what had happened to Erica. They withheld the discovery of Erica's remains in 2016, hoping Casey would confess on her own. When questioned, Casey adamantly denied any involvement. "I've never been there," she stated, repeatedly dismissing any accusations of abuse or wrongdoing. Yet the truth was undeniable. Erica's remains told a haunting story of prolonged and systematic abuse. On October 14, 2016, Erica's remains were sent to the medical examiner, who spent 3 months meticulously examining her skeleton. The findings were devastating. Erica had endured severe and chronic abuse, with injuries ranging across her body, her face, torso, back, and limbs. She had multiple fractures, including broken bones in her shoulder blades and ribs that had partially healed before being broken again. Some of these injuries indicated long-term trauma, with new bone growth attempting to repair the damage. It was clear Erica had been subjected to relentless physical violence. Her brother Jamie Parsons confirmed the extent of the abuse during interviews. He recalled Erica being beaten regularly, often with belts or even remote controls. He also described friendly reminders, a cruel term Casey used for bending Erica's fingers back until they nearly touched her wrist. Erica suffered more than just physical violence. She was systematically starved, with food withheld for extended periods. Her growth was stunted so severely that her bones were the length expected for a 9-year-old, even though she was 13 at the time of her death. This combination of abuse and starvation was classified as torture, a level of cruelty rarely seen in child abuse cases. Family photos provided another window into Erica's suffering. While her siblings appeared happy and carefree in pictures, Erica was often captured standing apart, facing a corner. These images starkly symbolize the isolation and neglect she endured. The contrast between her siblings' joy and her mistreatment is profoundly heartbreaking. On June 18, 2017, Erica was finally laid to rest in a funeral organized and paid for by the Rowan County community. Hundreds attended, determined to give Erica the love and respect she never received in life. By February 20, 2018, Casey and Sandy Parsons were charged with first-degree murder, felony child abuse, and concealing Erica's death. Casey ultimately pled guilty on August 2, 2019, admitting to Erica's murder and child abuse. Her court statement was cold and detached, offering little insight into her motivations. She expressed regret but showed no genuine remorse. "I don't know why I did what I did," Casey claimed, adding, "I failed Erica horribly." Sandy also pled guilty to second-degree murder and child abuse, but his motivations were equally unclear. He reportedly believed he had negotiated a deal with the FBI to reduce his sentence, a claim investigators later denied. Both Casey and Sandy remain incarcerated, serving sentences for both fraud and Erica's murder. Casey, currently in a Florida prison, will begin her life sentence for murder in 2024. Sandy, held in New Jersey, is serving 33 to 43 years for Erica's death and will be eligible for parole at age 82. The Parsons' motives remain elusive, but their actions suggest a level of cruelty and neglect that defies comprehension. Erica was treated as less than human, subjected to unimaginable suffering at the hands of those who were supposed to protect her. As her community remembers her and seeks justice, the hope remains that policies and systems will improve to prevent such tragedies from happening again. Erica, now at peace, will not be forgotten. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations. One evening in February 2010, the McStay family, Joseph, his wife Summer, and their two little kids, seemed to vanish into thin air. Their cozy home in California looked mostly normal. Dinner was half-cooked, toys were left around, and their dogs were there but uncared for. But something felt wrong. The family's car was gone, their phones were off, and as the days went by, no one heard from them. As the police started digging into the case, they uncovered a mystery full of secrets and betrayal. What happened to the McStay family, and how did no one notice what was coming? Joseph, Summer, Gianni, and Joseph Jr. were a joyful family, living in a lovely new home in Fallbrook, California. Joseph, the family's main provider, ran a successful decorative fountain business. February 4th, 2010, began as a regular day for the family. Joseph called his father, Patrick, to explain that he was running late for a business lunch. Meanwhile, Summer had been in touch with her sister, who had recently given birth, telling her that she was busy setting things up in their new home. Over the next few days, communication from Joseph and Summer to their relatives abruptly stopped. While some thought it was simply due to their busy lives and caring for two young children, Joseph's father, Patrick, found the situation odd. He had a close relationship with his son and wasn't used to being ignored. As his concern grew, he asked his other son, Michael, to check on Joseph's home. At first, Michael didn't share the same level of worry, believing that his brother was simply caught up in daily tasks and would reconnect soon. Patrick, however, persisted, and eventually, Michael agreed to visit the house. When Michael arrived, he noticed that the family car was gone, but their dogs were still at the house, seemingly uncared for. The doors were locked, but Michael managed to get inside through a window. Inside, things were off. There was spoiled food in the kitchen and popcorn scattered in the living room. Despite these oddities, Michael initially thought the family had gone on a trip. However, it was unusual that they hadn't told anyone, so Michael alerted the authorities to his brother's disappearance. The police found no sign of forced entry or violence, though it seemed the family had left in a hurry. By February 8th, the family's car was discovered abandoned near the border crossing between the U.S. and Mexico. Surveillance footage from the border showed a family of 4 walking into Mexico, but the video quality was poor, leaving the police uncertain if it was indeed the McStays. Further investigation revealed that Summer had recently searched for information about Mexico on her computer, leading to speculation that the family had left voluntarily. However, Joseph's father, Patrick, firmly believed that his son would never leave without informing anyone. Joseph's mother, after viewing the footage, was sure the man shown was not Joseph, based on his walk. Michael and Susan took over Joseph's business, while Patrick felt increasingly left out, especially as he was estranged from Susan and had little contact with Michael. Months passed with no solid leads, and the case was handed over to the FBI by April 2010. Unfortunately, the authorities still considered the family's disappearance a voluntary departure, resulting in a lack of exhaustive efforts to find them. The absence of any clear evidence of a crime also prevented police from obtaining access to Joseph's financial records. For more than 3 years, the case remained cold, until November 13, 2013, when a motorcyclist stumbled upon a horrific discovery while riding in the Mojave Desert. He found what appeared to be a child's skull and promptly notified the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department. Upon further investigation, authorities uncovered 2 shallow graves containing the remains of 4 people, 2 adults, and 2 children. Dental records confirmed that the remains belonged to Joseph, Summer, Gianni, and Joseph Jr. Alongside the remains, a 3-pound sledgehammer was found, identified as the murder weapon. Forensic examinations concluded that the family had died from blunt force trauma, likely having been tortured before their deaths. The autopsy revealed that young Joseph Jr. had suffered multiple severe blows to the head, while Joseph Sr. was found with an electrical cord wrapped around his neck. With this grim discovery, the case took a dark turn and was now considered a homicide. Investigators began reconstructing the family's final months by interviewing friends, family, and examining phone records and security footage. A key breakthrough came when security footage from a neighbor's camera revealed that the last person to meet with Joseph on February 4th was his business partner, Charles Chase Merritt. Prior to the discovery of the bodies, Chase had been interviewed by authorities, during which he claimed to have spoken with Joseph on the phone at least twice on the day of the disappearance. Chase had also told the media that Joseph was his best friend, and in one interview, he mentioned being the last person to see Joseph, a statement that raised suspicion among detectives. Chase's behavior after the disappearance was concerning. In an early police interview, he referred to Joseph in the past tense, saying, "He was my best friend." When questioned about this after the bodies were found, Chase claimed he hadn't realized he was speaking that way. Chase had also told police that on February 4th, he and Joseph had a business meeting over lunch to discuss financial matters. During that meeting, Chase said Joseph gave him physical copies of checks for ongoing projects. Further investigation into these checks revealed discrepancies. Digital records indicated that while the checks were dated February 4th, they had actually been written several days after the family disappeared. This led investigators to suspect that Chase had forged the checks to make it appear as though they had been issued before the disappearance. Moreover, detectives uncovered that Chase had a gambling addiction and had been stealing money from Joseph's business accounts for months. It was speculated that Joseph had discovered this, leading to tension between the two and possibly providing Chase with a motive for murder. Police later uncovered that Chase had also issued checks totaling over $21,000 from Joseph McStay's business account in the days following the family's murder. Merritt then went on gambling sprees, losing significant amounts of money in casinos. A bank's customer service employees also revealed to investigators that someone claiming to be Joseph McStay had called to request the complete deletion of his account and all related information. However, the caller failed to provide the correct password, so the request couldn't be processed. When authorities traced the call, they discovered it came not from Joseph's phone, but from Charles Merritt's. Further investigation revealed that on February 1st, Joseph had sent an email claiming that Chase owed him almost $43,000. Adding to this, cell phone data placed Merritt in the Mojave Desert 2 days after the McStay family disappeared. Authorities believed Merritt knew the area well, having grown up nearby. During the investigation, police also received a DNA profile from the McStay family car. DNA found on the steering column and gear shift matched Charles Merritt. With mounting evidence against Merritt, detectives concluded that he had murdered the McStay family. The theory proposed by investigators was that Merritt had killed the family with a sledgehammer, transported their bodies to the Mojave Desert, and buried them in shallow graves. He then drove the family's car to the border near Mexico, abandoning it there to mislead investigators into believing that the family had fled to Mexico. It's also believed that Merritt was the one who conducted searches about Mexico on Summers' computer. On November 5, 2014, Charles Merritt was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. Though he vehemently denied the accusations, he was arrested and brought to trial. However, the trial faced numerous delays as Merritt fired several of his attorneys and even attempted to represent himself at one point. Over the span of 2 years, he cycled through 5 different lawyers. The trial finally began on January 7, 2019. Prosecutors entered the trial confident in their case, presenting substantial evidence linking Merritt to the murders, along with a clear motive. They argued that Joseph had confronted Merritt about the money he had been stealing from the business, threatening to report him to the authorities. Merritt, who had a criminal record involving theft and fraud, panicked, fearing a lengthy prison sentence. As a result, prosecutors suggested he decided to kill Joseph and his entire family to silence them. The prosecution believed that Merritt first killed Joseph and then lured Summer and the children to their deaths. After murdering the family, Merritt hid the bodies for 2 days, during which time he accessed Joseph's bank account and issued the fraudulent checks. On February 6th, he allegedly transported the bodies to the desert, dug 2 shallow graves, and buried them along with the murder weapon. He later abandoned the family car near the border, though his DNA left inside the vehicle would become crucial evidence. During the trial, the prosecution presented security footage that supposedly showed Merritt's truck leaving the McStay residence. However, the video was blurry, leading to debate over whether it truly was Merritt's truck. The defense seized on this and other inconsistencies, including the unclear location of the murders. Prosecutors could not definitively say if the killings occurred in the family home or elsewhere, such as the desert. Merritt's defense team argued that he had an alibi. His girlfriend at the time testified that Merritt was with her at home on the night of February 4, 2010. His daughter also stated that she remembered her father being home that night. As for Merritt's cell phone data placing him in the Mojave Desert on February 6th, the defense explained that he could have been in the area to visit his sister. Juanita, Chase's sister, testified that her brother frequently visited her, though she couldn't recall if he had visited on that specific day. However, prosecutors confronted Juanita with a recorded police interview from 2013 in which she claimed that Charles rarely visited her and hadn't done so for 5 years, which contradicted her trial testimony. The defense also tried several tactics to derail the trial, including accusing prosecutors of withholding evidence and requesting that key figures in the case be removed. However, the judge overseeing the case rejected these motions, allowing the trial to proceed. Chase Merritt's defense attorneys argued that the prosecution failed to thoroughly investigate other individuals who had motives to harm Joseph McStay. They pointed to 3 men they considered persons of interest, with the first being Joseph's brother, Michael McStay. When Michael took the stand, Charles Merritt's attorney asked him several pointed questions, suggesting he could be responsible for the crime. The lawyer inquired about Michael's relationship with his brother, to which both Michael and the rest of the family asserted that it was good. However, the defense raised doubts, questioning why Michael did not immediately go to check on his brother's home and why he was slow to report the family's disappearance. In response, Michael admitted that he hadn't been overly concerned at first, thinking his brother had simply gone on a trip with his family. The defense also suggested that the truck seen in the security footage could have been Michael's, not Charles'. But a particularly strange detail that led some people to suspect Michael was that before the family's bodies were found, he told officers that he hoped they weren't buried in shallow graves. This statement caused significant debate, as the McStay family was indeed discovered in shallow graves in the Mojave Desert. Many found it suspicious that Michael could have imagined this scenario with such accuracy. However, Joseph and Michael's parents dismissed the comment as an unfortunate coincidence, while others found it highly unusual. In addition to Michael, the defense also pointed the finger at Joseph's other business partner, a man named Dan Kavanaugh, who managed Joseph's online sales. Dan, known as Dan the Hacker due to his computer expertise, worked with Joseph to promote and sell their products online. His compensation was a percentage of the online sales. Dan had previously been on police radar when his ex-girlfriend, Tracy, accused him of confessing to the murders in early 2018. Tracy's claims were dismissed, however, as she had a history of substance abuse and was on bad terms with Dan, leading the authorities to believe she might be trying to falsely incriminate him. According to Charles Merritt's defense team, Dan had a strong motive to harm Joseph. At the end of 2009, Joseph and Dan had clashed over profit distribution. Dan believed he was entitled to a share of not just the online sales but all sales, while Joseph disagreed and initially refused to pay more. Dan allegedly threatened to ruin Joseph's online business by redirecting his website's traffic to adult sites. Ultimately, Joseph agreed to give Dan more money, including his BMW and additional payments. The last of these payments was due around the time of the family's disappearance. After the murders, Dan continued to work with Susan, Michael, and Charles to keep the business running, but he later sold the company in June 2011, pocketing over $100,000. The defense argued that Dan's exclusion from certain projects and lack of payments could have pushed him over the edge. However, Dan had a solid alibi. He was vacationing in Hawaii with his girlfriend during the time of the murders. His ex-girlfriend testified that they were together on February 4, 2010, and posted photos to Facebook as evidence. While some people questioned the validity of social media posts as proof, the ex-girlfriend maintained that she had no reason to lie for Dan, as they were no longer together and had parted on bad terms. The police eventually confirmed that Dan had indeed been in Hawaii at the time of the killings. During the trial, the defense also brought up Joseph's ex-wife's partner, suggesting that he too could have been involved. Joseph had a son named Jonah with his ex-wife, and tensions between Joseph and her new partner had escalated prior to the murders. Nevertheless, the police ruled him out as a suspect. Despite the defense's efforts to shift attention away from Charles Merritt, by June 2019, the jury found Merritt guilty on 4 counts of first-degree murder. Before the sentencing hearing, the victims' families gave emotional statements. Patrick, Joseph's father, addressed Merritt, saying that Joseph had done so much to help him and his family, particularly when Merritt faced legal troubles in 2009. Susan, Joseph's mother, called Merritt a despicable monster who had brutally killed 2 innocent children, her grandchildren. She labeled him a coward and a baby killer. Summer's sister tearfully shared how their family would forever be scarred by the loss of their loved ones. Joseph's eldest son, Jonah, also spoke, recounting the devastating impact of losing his father, stepmother, and younger siblings when he was just 12 years old. After hearing these victim impact statements, Merritt asked to speak. Through tears, he insisted on his innocence, declaring that he did not commit the murders and did not deserve what was happening to him. "I didn't do it," he said. "With God as my witness, I will prove everyone wrong." He added that he loved Joseph and would never have hurt him or his family. Merritt's sentencing was delayed after he once again requested to dismiss his attorney, though the judge rejected this motion. His legal team also filed for a new trial, accusing the prosecution of misconduct, but this request was also denied. Finally, on January 21, 2020, after years of delays, the San Bernardino Superior Court sentenced Charles Merritt, then 62 years old, to death. Despite the death sentence, it is unlikely that Merritt will ever be executed, as California has not carried out an execution since 2006. Instead, Merritt will likely spend the rest of his life in the death row. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations. It was a quiet afternoon at the Ding family's home, just like any other day. But around 3 p.m., someone unexpected walked through their door and everything changed. What happened next was so terrible that it shocked the entire community. Hours went by before anyone knew something was wrong. When the police finally arrived, it was too late. The few clues left behind only made people wonder what really happened inside that house. Ang Xiangdu was born in 1958 in China. Little is known about his early life or family background, but from a young age, he showed a strong interest in business and traditional Chinese medicine. He eventually specialized in this field, and it was through his work that he met his future wife. The couple later had a son, though the details of his life remain private. By 1998, Ang Xiangdu decided to expand his horizons and, along with his family, relocated to the United Kingdom in search of a better future. Shortly after their arrival, Ang Xiangdu crossed paths with the Ding family, with whom he shared not only a cultural background but also a deep passion for traditional Chinese medicine. The Ding family consisted of Jifeng, known as Jeff, his wife Helen Cui, and their daughters Xing, known as Nancy, and Alice. The Ding family had moved from China to the UK in the early 1990s, working tirelessly to build a better life. Both Jeff and Helen were university graduates with degrees in chemistry, and their daughters were born in Northampton in 1993 and 1999, respectively. Jeff worked as an engineering professor at the University of Manchester, while Helen was a Mandarin teacher at her daughter's school and also worked as a translator. She was known as a devoted mother and a hard worker. Their daughters, Nancy and Alice, were not only exceptional students, but also talented violinists who performed with the Northamptonshire Youth Orchestra, touring on several occasions. Nancy had just received an offer to study medicine at the University of Nottingham. Ang Xiangdu's professional relationship with the Ding family began in 1999, when they, along with a man named Paul, partnered to open a traditional Chinese medicine clinic in Birmingham. The business partnership initially appeared promising, with both families working hard to grow the clinic. However, over time, financial disagreements began to arise, leading to tensions within the partnership. The situation escalated when Jeff accused Ang Xiangdu of mismanaging the clinic's funds. Although Ang Xiangdu was briefly arrested, no charges were filed against him. Following this incident, Ang Xiangdu was forced out of the business, but he didn't back down. He decided to take legal action against the Dings, initiating a lengthy and bitter legal battle over the joint ownership of the clinic. The case dragged on for nearly a decade, filled with appeals and complex legal procedures. On April 28, 2011, Ang Xiangdu lost his final appeal. The court ordered him to refrain from liquidating his assets and to pay the Ding family around $116,000 in legal fees. Furious with the outcome, Ang Xiangdu's situation worsened as he had been in the process of negotiating the sale of a property, a deal that he now had to cancel because of the court's decision. Amid these mounting pressures, on April 30th, his wife contacted the police, reporting his disappearance. She explained that her husband had left a farewell note written in Mandarin, expressing his best wishes and asking their son to take care of his mother. She also expressed concern for his safety, fearing he might have gone to confront the Ding family due to the ongoing financial and legal issues. Given the tense history between Ang Xiangdu and the Dings, local authorities in West Midlands contacted their counterparts in Northamptonshire, asking them to check on the Ding family's home. On the morning of May 1st, officers arrived at the Ding residence, but no one answered the door and the family's car was not present. Assuming they were not home, the officers left a card in the mailbox and departed. Later that day, police were called back to the Ding home by a neighbor who reported that something seemed wrong. He had not seen the family in 2 days, which struck him as unusual. He knocked on the door several times, but there was no response. When he peered through the kitchen window, he was horrified to see what appeared to be a leg lying in a pool of blood. The officers who returned to the scene were met with a gruesome sight: the bodies of all four Ding family members, who had been brutally stabbed. Investigators soon realized that they had visited the same house earlier in search of Ang Xiang-du following his wife's report of his disappearance. They also discovered that days before the murders, there had been a call to emergency services from the Ding residence. Unfortunately, due to a miscommunication regarding the call's location, officers were sent to the wrong address. After confirming that the occupants of that property were safe, the police had closed the case, thinking it might have been a prank call. While authorities were searching the wrong location, the Ding family was in greater danger than anyone realized. As investigators scoured the crime scene, they discovered a sharp object near the kitchen sink that did not match the other utensils in the home. Believing it could be the murder weapon, they sent it for analysis. Forensic teams also found fingerprints scattered throughout the house. The four bodies were transported to the forensic service, where the cause of death for each was confirmed to be stab wounds. Jeff had sustained 23 injuries, Helen 13, while Nancy had 11 wounds and Alice had 4. The medical examiner determined that the time of death was between 3 and 4 p.m. on April 29th. The community was devastated by the murders, as the Ding family was well loved by all. Friends, relatives, and the wider community gathered at the local church to bid their final farewells. Among those in attendance were Jeff's colleagues and the daughter's school friends. During the ceremony, Jeff's co-workers spoke of his dedication to engineering, while Nancy and Alice's teachers and friends remembered their talents, kindness, and academic dedication. In addition to the funeral, other memorials were held. At Alice's school, daffodils were planted in her honor. A commemorative plaque and a tree were also installed to remember her. Meanwhile, as friends and family tried to cope with their loss, detectives had already launched an intense investigation. Ang Xiang-du quickly became the prime suspect due to his long-standing legal dispute with the Ding family. The results from the fingerprints found at the crime scene matched Ang Xiang-du's, confirming his involvement. Initially, based on the farewell note he left his wife, officers believed he might have taken his own life after committing the murders. However, a thorough examination of digital evidence revealed multiple sightings of Ang Xiang-du throughout the UK, which is heavily monitored by surveillance cameras. Unbeknownst to him, every step he took before and after the crime was captured on camera. His missteps began when he left his house on the morning of April 29th. He hadn't considered the possibility of being tracked and took no precautions. His movements were traced back to that morning around 10 a.m. when he left his home to head to the store where he practiced Chinese medicine. His wife normally accompanied him, but that day she stayed home to watch the royal wedding, which was taking place. Ang Xiang-du drove to the train station, bought a ticket to Birmingham, and surveillance cameras recorded every moment. He spent little time at his shop, just enough to write a farewell note to his wife and retrieve a bag containing a knife. After that, he boarded a train to Birmingham and began his grim journey, switching to a bus at Northampton Station, arriving at 12:37 p.m. From there, he boarded another bus heading to the town where the Ding family lived. He appeared perfectly calm as he asked the bus driver for directions, though the driver mistakenly gave him the wrong address, forcing Ang Xiang-du to walk a considerable distance to reach the Ding residence, which he finally arrived at around 3 p.m., committing the brutal murders shortly after. Despite initial searches at airports and Eurostar services yielding no results, police later determined that Ang Xiang-du had driven to London and abandoned his car on a residential street. By 8 a.m. on April 30th, the day after the murders, he was already on a bus bound for Paris. From there, he slipped undetected into Spain and eventually made his way to the ferry port of Algeciras. Northamptonshire police launched the largest manhunt in the region's history, deploying over 240 officers to track down the suspect. Detectives spent 5,000 hours reviewing surveillance footage across the UK. They released security camera images from the day of the crime, hoping more witnesses might come forward to identify Aung San Suu, described as an older man in his 50s, small in stature and slightly hunched. The search expanded internationally with the help of Interpol, issuing alerts in 180 countries. Leads began trickling in, but it took time to process them all. Investigators questioned over 400 people and made 9 arrests, although none turned out to be the suspect. Some of those arrested were believed to have ties to Aung San Suu, though this proved to be false. The police offered a $13,200 reward, which was later increased to $33,000 for information leading to Aung San Suu's capture. Finally, after 14 months, authorities received a tip from a construction worker in Morocco who claimed to have seen a photograph of Aung San Suu in a local newspaper and believed he had worked alongside the fugitive. The man told officers that he and his co-workers had taken pity on Aung San Suu, often bringing him food and trying to assist him however they could. Upon learning this, UK police traveled to Spain and requested Aung San Suu's capture by Moroccan authorities. Aung San Suu was arrested on July 7, 2012, in a partially constructed apartment building in Tangier, where he had been sleeping on a makeshift bed and using a small gas stove to cook. When confronted with the evidence, he couldn't deny his involvement in the murders and confessed to everything. Although there was no formal extradition agreement between the UK and Morocco, British authorities submitted an official request to the Ministry of the Interior, and Aung San Suu was eventually flown to Heathrow Airport on February 20, 2013, to face justice for his crimes. On February 21, he appeared before Northampton Magistrates Court, where he was charged with 4 counts of murder for the Ding family killings and remanded in custody awaiting trial. The capture of Aung San Suu marked a significant achievement for British law enforcement. However, this success was somewhat overshadowed by the Independent Police Complaints Commission's report, which highlighted the error made with Alice's emergency call on the day of the murders. According to the report, if the police had used more detailed controls and an available subscriber verification system, they could have identified the Ding family's correct address, allowing the emergency to be attended to within minutes. While police admitted their mistake, forensic experts stated it was unlikely that the family could have been saved, given the severity of their injuries. However, they acknowledged that a prompt response might have led to Aung San Suu being apprehended at the scene, as it was confirmed he remained in the house for nearly 5 hours after the murders, even taking a nap. After several months and delays due to scheduling changes, Aung San Suu's trial, at age 55, began on November 12, 2013, at Northampton Crown Court. While Aung San Suu did not deny killing the family, his defense team argued that the decade-long legal battle with his former business partners had left him suffering from severe depression, which impaired his judgment. They contended that he should be charged with manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility rather than murder as the prosecution sought. The defense centered on Aung San Suu's mental and emotional state at the time of the killings, calling a forensic psychiatrist who had previously interviewed him. According to the psychiatrist, Ong Seong-do confessed to purchasing the sharp object months before the murders, intending to use it to end his own life due to his dire financial situation and deep depression. He recounted that while at his shop, he remembered the weapon in his bag and brought it with him on the trip from Birmingham to Northampton, planning to use it to force Jeff to pay the money he believed he was owed from their legal dispute. When asked if he intended to harm the family, Ong Seong-do responded that he might have had that thought. He insisted that he hadn't planned to kill them and wouldn't have gone to their house if he had. He also mentioned that if the Dings had apologized to him, the attack wouldn't have happened. In his confession, Ong Seong-do stated that once inside the house, he asked Jeff for money, but Jeff allegedly insulted him, mocked him, and ordered him to leave or he would call the police. Ong Seong-do then claimed that he pulled out the weapon and everything went black. He described how Jeff's voice and image became distorted, harsh, and ugly as he attacked him. The forensic expert explained this as evidence of Ong Seong-do entering a heightened state of excitement. According to Ong Seong-do, while attacking Jeff, he felt a hand pulling his arm and turned to find Helen, whom he also stabbed. He stated that he didn't remember how many times. Hearing a noise upstairs, Ong Seong-do said he went to investigate and found the daughters, whom he also stabbed. When recounting the murders of the girls, he broke down, saying he didn't know why he had done it, describing the act as a great sin. Afterward, Ong Seong-do claimed he fell asleep in the house, waking up only after it had gotten dark. Seeing a wallet and car keys nearby, he decided to flee. Initially, he considered finding his other former business partner to harm him as well, but after getting lost, he chose to escape instead. For the prosecution, this was a calculated plan set into motion after Ong Seong-do's legal options had run out. Prosecutors argued that his financial ruin was the catalyst for the murders, which were acts of cold-blooded revenge. They presented evidence, including fingerprints found at the scene, the weapon that Ong Seong-do had carried from his shop, and the farewell note he left for his wife, indicating premeditation. They also presented documents outlining the legal dispute and the debt Ong Seong-do owed the Dings, providing a motive for the killings. The jury was also shown autopsy reports revealing the brutality of the attacks. During the trial, they watched surveillance footage of Ong Seong-do casually walking through the bus station, asking for directions to the Dings neighborhood and clearly carrying a backpack containing the murder weapon. They also heard Alice's heartbreaking emergency call, which lasted only 20 seconds but moved several jurors to tears. Additionally, a school friend of Alice and a neighbor testified that they had seen a strange man near the Dings house on the day of the murders. The girl had told her father, who went to investigate, but, seeing the man, assumed he was a family acquaintance and told his daughter to play away from the house. Neither noticed blood on the man's clothes, but they recalled that his beige jacket was buttoned up to the neck. Days later, after the crime was discovered, the girl told her father she had heard a scream that day, but hadn't realized at the time if it was a cry for help or just someone playing. After a 2-week trial on November 27th, the jury took just over 3 hours to find Ong Seong-do guilty on all 4 counts of murder. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of 40 years. During sentencing, the judge remarked that the crimes were premeditated and motivated by revenge. Addressing Ong Seong-do, the judge said that by taking Jeff's life, he had killed the man he despised. The judge also spoke to the Ding family members, especially Helen's father and brother, who had traveled from China to follow the trial. Both expressed satisfaction with the verdict, though they acknowledged they would never recover from their loss. Ang Seong-do appealed his conviction in 2014, but it was rejected on June 4th of that year. The court upheld the original life sentence, citing the heinous nature of the crimes. Today, Ang Seong-do remains imprisoned at a high-security facility where some of the UK's most dangerous criminals are held. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations. One quiet night in October 2023, a 13-year-old boy made a shocking 911 call that left the Hialeah, Florida, community stunned. His voice was shaky and full of fear as he admitted to something terrible that had just happened in his home, a crime that no one could have expected. With his newborn sister asleep in the next room and his stepfather far away, the boy's confession started an investigation that uncovered dark and surprising details about what took place that night. But why did this young boy do such a terrible thing? And could there be more to the story? The truth is much more complicated than it seems. Irina Garcia, born around 1984, was of Cuban descent and moved to Miami, Florida, with her mother. While not much is known about her early life, she later married Jose Rosa, a man serving in the military, and they welcomed their first child, Derek Rosa, on August 26, 2010. Although Irina and Jose eventually divorced, they maintained a friendly co-parenting relationship. Derek spent weekdays with his mother and stayed with his father every other weekend. He also had a strong bond with his maternal grandmother. Derek grew up as a respectful and well-behaved child, known for his academic achievements and strong character. He was a student at Mater Academy, excelling in his studies, and had dreams of becoming an engineer in the U.S. military. As time passed, Irina found love again with Frank Ramos, a fellow Cuban who worked as a long-distance truck driver. The couple moved into an apartment in Hialeah, Florida. In 2023, Irina became pregnant with her second child. A few days before giving birth, the family captured their joy in a photo shoot, celebrating the upcoming arrival of their daughter, Ashley, born in late September of that year. By all accounts, Irina was a warm and kind person, creating a harmonious and loving home. However, on October 12, 2023, just days after Derek's 13th birthday, their lives were shattered. That day, Derek made a shocking 911 call confessing that he had killed his mother with a knife. His voice was filled with fear and hesitation during the 17-minute call as he tried to explain to the dispatcher what had happened. He revealed that he was home alone with his mother and his 14-day-old sister who was asleep in her crib. Frank, his stepfather, was away on a trip, testing a truck outside the city. During the call, Derek mentioned that his stepfather had 2 firearms, one of which was in the apartment. After committing the crime, Derek had briefly considered using one of the guns to harm himself, but ultimately decided against it. He also revealed that he had spoken to a friend about the incident, a detail that left authorities stunned and raised more questions. When asked by the dispatcher why he had attacked his mother, Derek provided an answer that was not publicly disclosed. Throughout the call, the dispatcher worked to keep him calm and occupied, while officers traced his location and rushed to the scene. As police approached the home, the tension increased, and the dispatcher urged Derek to keep his hands empty and move away from any weapons. When officers arrived, Derek peacefully surrendered and was taken into custody while neighbors recorded the scene. Inside the home, police found a gruesome sight: Irina's body, lying on the bed covered in blood. Beside her, the newborn baby slept peacefully, unharmed. The infant was later placed in the care of her maternal grandmother. That same night, Derek was interrogated by the Hialeah police. Despite the gravity of his actions, he remained calm and composed during the questioning. He confessed that after going to bed around 10 p.m., he had woken up just after 11:30 p.m., gone to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and entered his mother's room. While Irina slept next to her baby, Derek attacked her.
What type of knife was it? Do you know?
It's just a big size kitchen knife.
That big?
Yeah.
What did you do with the guns?
I grabbed the gun.
Okay.
I pulled back to slide, but I didn't want to shoot myself.
Okay.
I intended to shoot myself before, but I couldn't.
Why did you kill your mother? Do you know?
If I have to say it now,
Yeah, get it off your chest. Absolutely.
I can't wait for a lawyer.
During the interview, Derek detailed the bloodstains on his shirt and hands, explaining they were from the attack. He even demonstrated the size of the knife he used, describing how he first targeted her neck, believing it was a vulnerable spot. During Derek's interrogation, as seen in the video footage, he appeared calm while answering detectives' questions. He admitted that before committing the crime, he had insulted his mother in Spanish. The first stab had startled her, and she only managed to scream once before falling silent. However, Derek's demeanor changed significantly when a detective asked about his reasons for killing his mother. He requested to use the bathroom and then remained quiet for a few moments. He finally questioned whether he needed to answer that question at that time and asked for a lawyer, bringing the interrogation to a close. The forensic examination of Irina revealed a total of 46 wounds, many inflicted on her face. Additionally, the investigation of Derek's phone uncovered disturbing images that horrified those who saw them. Not only had Derek contacted a friend to tell him about the crime, but he had also sent 3 photographs, 2 of his deceased mother and 1 of himself posing for a chilling selfie with blood on his hands. The friend, whom Derek mentioned both in his 911 call and later to detectives, was someone he had met through online gaming when he was 10 years old. They had never met in person and communicated mostly on weekends. Derek didn't even know his real name, referring to him only by the alias Sweden, which was saved in his phone. The search history on Derek's phone revealed unsettling queries before the crime, such as how to kill someone with a knife, the most effective method to do it, and where to target the body for the quickest result. Authorities noted that Derek had specifically researched the jugular vein. As the sole suspect in his mother's murder, Derek was taken into custody, while investigators confirmed that his stepfather, Frank, had been out of state at the time of the incident, working in Georgia. The community was left in shock, struggling to comprehend how a promising young boy could become entangled in such a tragic event. Neighbors and friends expressed disbelief, remembering Derek as a polite and dedicated student. His family requested privacy as they mourned the loss of Irina. A Hialeah police spokesperson revealed that Derek had been a model student, with no previous issues at home or school. He had no known history of mental health problems that could have explained his actions. On October 27, 2023, the authorities announced that Derek would face a charge of first-degree murder and would be tried as an adult. His request for house arrest under the supervision of his father and grandmother was denied, and he was transferred to the Metro West Detention Center in Doral. Due to his age, he was kept isolated from the general prison population and monitored 24/7, as he was considered a danger to himself. Despite the overwhelming evidence, some rallied in Derek's defense, including his family. His father described him as a respectful student and was baffled by what could have driven his son to such an act. Having served in the military for 22 years, he believed he had instilled strong values in his child. Derek's maternal grandmother referred to him as the best boy in the world, urging people not to misunderstand the situation, as no one knew him better than she did. A campaign titled Save Derek Rosa was launched online, garnering over 23,000 signatures in support of the teenager. The petition raised doubts about Derek's involvement, suggesting that his search history might have been manipulated or that someone else could have used his device. There was also suspicion that Derek, whose first language was English, might not have written the Spanish search terms found on his phone. Some claimed there was a second voice heard during Derek's 911 call and demanded further investigation into other family members, particularly Frank. Although Frank was never a suspect, many speculated about his involvement. Some accused him of manipulating Derek, and rumors about Frank's personal life sparked public interest. Speculation arose that Frank had a second family in his home country, with photos surfacing online showing him with another woman and 2 girls. However, no concrete evidence linked him to a hidden past. After the crime, Frank opposed the defense's request to search the apartment, claiming that Derek's father and other relatives had already removed several items. The prosecution supported Frank's decision, though this refusal added to public suspicion. Frank's lack of public statements further fueled conspiracy theories, with many wondering about his whereabouts following the incident. On December 14th, the trial began. Derek's grandmother, father, and other relatives attended, and several testimonies were given in defense of the teenager. The defense lawyers argued for Derek's transfer to a juvenile detention center, stating that his rights were being violated by keeping him in an adult facility, given that he was a minor. Prosecutors, on the other hand, argued that Derek's current situation ensured he received an education while incarcerated. Testifying in his favor were a counselor and 2 teachers who provided him with personalized lessons to help him continue his high school education. Although the teenager spent around 20 hours a day confined in his cell, he had limited interactions. He met with his math teacher 3 times a week and had language classes for another 3 hours each week. The prison housed 34 other minors, but Derek, being the youngest at 13, had restricted interactions, limited to brief periods of playing soccer and basketball with a single other inmate. Derek's math instructor testified that the boy responded to lessons just like any other student. Meanwhile, his language teacher noted that Derek often expressed confusion during lessons, leading her to suspect he had learning difficulties. However, she also emphasized that Derek was polite and a diligent student. Derek's attorneys argued that he had lost 6 pounds during his first few months in detention. They called a forensic psychologist to testify, although the psychologist had not personally evaluated Derek. The specialist attributed Derek's weight loss to depression caused by isolation and testified that Derek was likely experiencing severe self-harm tendencies, which were not visibly apparent. The psychologist also suggested that Derek could be on the autism spectrum and recommended that he be treated as if he had autism until proven otherwise. The Correctional Health Services psychologist diagnosed Derek with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and confirmed that he had tendencies towards self-harm. It was notable that this was the first mention of Derek potentially being on the autism spectrum. Up until that point, he had not been diagnosed with any such condition, and his school records from the past 8 years had shown no signs of any deficiencies. Investigators who interacted with Derek in the hours following the crime also testified during this hearing, and the disturbing video of his confession was shown to the court. This was one of the few moments when Derek lowered his head and appeared to cry. Additionally, the state attorney's office released 2 new security videos as evidence. In the first video, Derek is seen opening the door to the apartment where his mother Irina is seated, holding the newborn baby. According to some sources, there was an argument between them. The second video shows Derek standing by his mother's bed as she slept, moments before her life was taken. The court also viewed photographs of the crime scene, including the weapon used. With these grim details, prosecutors aimed to prevent the judge from authorizing Derek's transfer to a juvenile detention center, insisting that he posed a danger to the community. After several days of testimony, the judge expressed concern over the relatively small amount of time Derek was allowed outside his cell but found no clear violation of his constitutional rights. As a result, the defense's request for a transfer to a juvenile facility was denied, and the judge ordered Derek to remain in the adult detention center. In an emotional hearing on Thursday, February 15th, defense attorneys presented 26 letters written by family members, all emphasizing that Derek was a kind, loving child and that the crime did not reflect his true character. The courtroom was filled with tension and hope as the letters were read aloud, highlighting the deep emotional impact of the situation on Derek's family and supporters. Derek's grandmother, father, and other family members attended the hearing, their faces filled with concern and love. Supporters from different parts of the United States had also traveled to be there, wearing T-shirts emblazoned with "Save Derek." Their presence was a powerful display of unwavering support for the young boy. Many in attendance echoed the sentiment that a child is innocent until proven guilty, and they firmly believed Derek Rosa could not have committed such a heinous act. His maternal grandmother emphasized that Derek was not an adult, but still a child who needed guidance. His biological father pleaded for leniency and a second chance to help Derek grow and learn from his mistakes. Both underscored the strong family support surrounding him. The letters submitted on Derek's behalf mostly asked the court not to treat him as an adult in the legal process. Derek's defense team argued that they were not prepared for trial because the prosecution had not provided all the necessary evidence. They pointed out key missing elements such as witness reports, footage from the baby monitor, clothing, and other personal items. Derek's attorney requested a court order forcing the prosecution to hand over the missing evidence or to exclude it from the case if it wasn't produced by a specific deadline. However, the prosecution had also been unable to access data from Derek's computer, tablets, and gaming consoles. The judge overseeing the case confirmed that there were 750 photos and multiple witness statements involved and ordered the prosecution to submit all unedited information. A new hearing date was set, but the judge maintained his decision to try Derek as an adult. Despite the judge's expressed urgency to expedite the trial, citing concerns about Derek's conditions in detention, the case became tangled in a series of hearings and delays. Throughout the proceedings, the defense petitioned for Derek to be declared indigent, arguing that the family lacked the financial resources to afford private attorneys. They requested that the state cover the costs for case preparation, including mental health experts, forensic analysis, and witness testimonies. At the most recent hearing, held on September 21, 2024, Derek appeared virtually and remained silent. His family broke down in tears upon seeing him on the screen, overwhelmed with emotion and pain. Concerned about the lengthy periods Derek spent in isolation, his lawyers once again petitioned to transfer him from the adult jail to a juvenile detention center. According to news reports, March records indicated that Derek had only been out of his cell for a total of 119 hours, with just 5 hours devoted to his education. Despite these revelations, the judge denied the request once again. New developments emerged when the prosecution identified Derek's mysterious online friend from the night of the crime. Through electronic device analysis, detectives traced the phone's owner and conducted an interrogation. Derek's trial is scheduled for December 2, 2024, with at least 28 witnesses expected to testify. The prosecution plans to present video testimony from Sweden, Derek's online friend. Meanwhile, the defense has reportedly obtained text messages between the Hialeah police detectives and Derek's stepfather, which could shed light on their relationship and whether any influence or manipulation took place before the crime. This ongoing investigation focuses on official information, witness statements, and family accounts. As the case is still unresolved, we refrain from making any judgments regarding Derek's innocence or guilt. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.